it's great to be here. I know half of you and half of you I don't know, so this is wonderful. It's nice to see some familiar faces and be able to, talk to some new ones. So thank you. I truly appreciate the South Windsor Chamber for having me. I'm going to share my screen here and go from there. So hopefully you all can see that. And so, I've met a few of you before. I'll give you just a little bit of kind of who I am. I do own a company. I've been in business for 4 years now. I'm an executive life coach, as well as corporate facilitator of a corporate course that I started this year. From that, I've actually joined forces with two other women, one who's a grief coach, grief and stress coach, and another who's a wellness nutritionist. And we are in the process right now of forming another company. We'll have the Human Wellness Experience, which is really, again, everything that I do is really geared towards helping individuals be their best self, and allowing for tools and things to kind of come to fruition to be able to allow that to happen for them. So really excited to share this part of it, and answer any questions that anyone has along the way. So feel free to kind of raise a hand or ask a question. I'm certainly open to that, and we'll get started. So really, what's in it for you? What does it mean to be your best self? I took really years kind of understanding for me what I wanted. I'm a very empathetic individual, so I spent the majority of my life trying to be the best version of myself that somebody else wanted, or that was a version of somebody else. And so, oh, what was that? Oh, I didn't know if somebody said something. And then so, through an event that happened in my life, I went on a journey to really find out what that best self was. And so a little background to that story. The event that happened was in 2009, my mother was diagnosed with dementia. And at the time, I really didn't understand what that meant. I really hadn't heard of the disease. I didn't know what Alzheimer's was. But shortly after the diagnosis, I really understood what our journey was going to be, or at least what I thought our journey was going to be. And I made a goal to myself that I was going to keep my mother home and take care of her. And I made that really without knowing what I was in store for. And so that journey taught me a lot. I went through a lot of different emotions. As my mother's health and mental status declined, so did the stress, and so did all of the emotions that come with taking care of somebody. But halfway through that journey, my mother was no longer vocal. She couldn't talk. She couldn't say my name. But I released all of those things, and I found gratitude. So regardless of the fire that was going on around me, whether it be the stress of taking care of and watching my mother decline, or financially, really making a third of what I was, but just trying to figure it all out to make it happen, really allowed me to appreciate things and to be able to be present versus kind of thinking about the future, because I really couldn't think too far in front of me because I had no idea what that was going to look like. Alzheimer's is a very changing and evolving disease. So what my mother was like in a routine that we might have had a month ago could completely change within a couple of weeks, just based on, kind of where she was or what kind of decline might have happened. And so that really allowed me to stop worrying about the future, having a goal in mind that was future status, but just doing things on a daily basis that allowed me to continuously move myself in that direction. And so, it was a pretty powerful, experience for me. I'm extremely grateful that I was able to give that back to my mom. But when she passed in 2015, I did a lot of reflecting, and I really started to understand the value of time. I lost my father when I was a senior in high school, and he was 45, and now here I was about to turn 41, and I lost my mother, who was 66. And so I wanted to journal. I had heard about the power of journaling and everything that it can do for you, but I was always really just frustrated with, I'd find these journals that were super positive and inspiring on the outside and then just blank on the inside. And I had no idea what to do with it. I had no idea what to do with all of these blank pages. But I knew I needed direction. And so I really decided to give myself that direction. I started what I called this weekly accountability worksheet. I started to really understand, what were my priorities, and health was one of my number one priorities. Well, how was I going to get healthy? At the time I was about 290 pounds. I really wasn't taking care of myself, and so I needed to understand, one, what I wanted, and then what are the steps that I was going to do and put in place in my life that would then going to allow me to be this healthy version of myself that I now wanted. And so that's where, I started to create this thing for myself. And, it really allowed me to evaluate and understand that I had the ability to drive my own bus. I saw myself do things that I, laid a roadmap out to that was really powerful. And it's so much more powerful than having a goal in mind and then hitting it. And only keeping it in your mind, because when you put it down on paper and then you see that through fruition, psychologically allows you to then say, well, maybe what else is next for me? What else can I achieve? What else do I want? And so, when we talk about being your best self, I think that it's really, it's such a huge topic right now because of really what we've just come out of. I think that people over the past 2 years have had lots of different stress thrown upon them with COVID, suffering loss, whether maybe they were working from an office and now all of a sudden everyone's working from home and dealing with all of those, maybe constraints that they weren't used to, and now being forced back into an office when they got comfortable working from home. So there's lots of different things that really happen to us and we deal with, but we don't really we allow them to happen versus really kind of just taking ownership and taking control and ultimately finding that best self. And so, I take a lot of pride right now in being able to talk to people because this is a great avenue, and journaling is such a great way to truly understand what you need, and then how you're going to be able to, bring that into your life so that you can take care of yourself. Because, quite frankly, at the heart of self-care is journaling. And I'm going to come right back to this, but I just wanted to put out that, like, that's the first topic that I talk about, is journaling really allows you to understand what it is that you need and then create a roadmap for you to be able to get there. But a few things that for me really stood out along my journey was that, I found my why. Throughout my life, I, always had this kind of, because I wasn't really ever passionate about one thing, excuse me, I stayed kind of in this vague place and I didn't really have these true passions in life. And so, once I discovered things that I enjoyed or a passion that I have, that allowed me to really, push past boundaries that I once believed that I had. Understanding why I was doing something, really allowed me to, whenever I got to a roadblock, or whenever I got to a place where I was really uncomfortable, I would then go back to that why was I doing it, to then, kind of push past that boundary or push past that instance that I was at, because it's only a moment of time. And, we can all push past these places that, become very uncomfortable for us. And so, with that, before we get kind of started into it, the thing that I start with everyone is understanding, what your priorities are in life, because, all of your goals, everything that you want for yourself, this version of yourself that maybe exists outside of us that we that we find sometimes unattainable to achieve, really all comes back to, one, is it a priority for us? And two, do we have the why behind it? So just really quickly, I want you guys to just take maybe a minute to 2 minutes. And if you can write down your 4 to 6 priorities that are your top priorities in life, maybe family, friends, work, your business, whatever that might be, just write those down real quick. And I'm gonna get back to that, within a couple of minutes. But I just want you to take an opportunity to write those down. And when I say priorities, again, these are the things. For me, it was health, and then all of my goals and all of the things that I do around that, kind of all roll up into me being, as healthy as I can for as long as I can, right? So that's the priority for me. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So with those priorities, again, self-care and journaling really go hand in hand, because, it allows all of those thoughts and all of those understanding of who you are and what you need to be able to, kind of come into one place. So just on a quick show of hands, or maybe just in the chat, when you guys were writing down the 4 to 6 priorities that you had, did anyone write themselves down as a priority? Excellent. Excellent. And I say this because, when I was taking care of my mom, I gave her 100% of what I had. But I wasn't taking care of myself. I was a version of me that was giving her 100%. And when I talk about this now, I'm passionate about me taking care of who I am, because that allows me to give more back to all the other people that, one, I'm taking care of, and all of the other people who are watching, right? So me being the best version that I can bring to the table each and every day allows me to then also take care of the people that I love and the people that I work with the exact same way, or at a better capacity, because I'm doing this for myself. I'm taking that time. And I think that there's a whiteboard on here. Yes. So I'm just going to create a new whiteboard. Oh, it wasn't able to. Never mind. So I'm just going to paint a kind of a quick picture before we move on to these different steps. But when you're talking about you and you're talking about filling your bucket and maintaining that type priority, there's 4 quadrants that we all go through. And that's, at the top of it, we've got urgent and not urgent. And then we've got important and not important. So if you break those 4 things up into quadrants, you have your urgent and important, that's quadrant 1. You have your not urgent but important, that's quadrant 2. And so when you think about your future self, your priorities, your goals, they all live in that quadrant 2, right? These are important to you, but it's not necessarily something that is going to happen today. That's something that sits in this future state. And so we tend to put that off because, and it's not this immediate thing that has to happen right now. But we realize that everything that we do right now has implications for us that, we don't know yet, right? So just being mindful of all of these choices and having those future goals in mind. And now we have quadrant 3, which is urgent but not important. And then we've got quadrant 4, which is kind of our time wasters. They're not urgent, they're not important, they're things that fill up our time. Now, each of those quadrants has a certain size circumference object that goes with it. So think about our quadrant 2, this is our future goals. Think about those as like golf balls. So you've got like 4 to 6 golf balls that are your top priorities and everything. Think of your quadrant 1 as little pebbles. Those are, again, all of those are the things that you have to do. That's regarding, these are the important and urgent things children, spouse, work, all of the different things that, kind of drive our daily basis. And our quadrant 3 is also the urgent things, but they're not as important. Sometimes it's returning maybe a phone call that we have to, but don't necessarily need to. Maybe it's washing clothes or doing dishes. These are things that we know that we need to do, but again, they're not urgent. And then our quadrant 4 is just our time wasters. Think about that as, I'm sorry, quadrant 3, think about that as sand. It kind of fills up our some of our space. And then water is quadrant 4, which is our time waster, and it just kind of covers the remaining part. Now think about a large jar that's got a cap to it. And that large jar represents 24 hours in the day. Typically, what most people do is that they take their quadrant 1, they take their small pebbles, and they put that into the jar. And they fill up most of their space with that. And then what happens? The other stuff that's urgent but not as important, think about that sand, and they fill up their jar with that. And then water, time wasters, we all have that throughout the day, sometimes more than others, but that typically is what then fills up the rest of the jar. And then most people are like, oh, I need to do different things for myself. And then they try to put the golf balls back into the jar. And what happens? There's no space. Or, you try to, you make a little bit of space, but it's not really what it should be. And so if you just flip the script and just think about this in a completely different way and just put the golf balls in first, what's going to happen is those rocks are still going to go in there. That sand is still going to cover all of that space. And then you just still have room for that water. There's always going to be water, but there's going to be less volume of it now because you haven't allowed for that time to get in there or creep into it, because you're planning all of these things that you want for yourself in the future, whatever they may look like. And again, it's just identifying what that best self is. So again, at the heart of self-care really, comes journaling. At its core, it's the practice of protecting your own well-being and happiness, particularly in the times of stress, right? Like, so we're always coming in or in the middle, or we're coming out of adversity. We can't escape that. There's always going to be some level of adversity coming in and out of our lives. And the more that we do to protect ourselves and do the things that keep us well, then we have the better opportunity to handle that stress, whatever it might look like. Being mindful and forward thinking is just really being present about who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, why you're making the choices that you are each and every day, because all of those choices lead to somewhere. And so if you don't have an exact understanding of where you want to go and what you want to do, then it can certainly escape. And we're all busy and we can all find things to be busy with. But these are the things that really allow us to just be mindful and really, take on that accountability and just say, okay, this is where I am. This is where I want to go. And let me slowly start to make some habits and change some habits that will allow me to, to kind of be that individual. Reflection. I've been somebody who reflects a lot my entire life. When my father passed away and then when my mother passed away. So I really think that reflecting on things is a really great way to just be like, okay, well, what happened? And what did I learn, or how did I grow from any given situation that we have in life? And so, when I talk about reflection, I always talk about, and I want people to think about the person that they love the most. Think about the conversation that they have with that person and the way that they talk to them and the gentle lens that they, typically will talk to somebody that they love. And I want them to apply that to themselves, right? Because we all have goals, but we're all not going to be perfect along that journey. And so stop beating yourself up. Stop talking to yourself in this negative capacity that doesn't allow you to just truly grow and to think about yourself as that future self, right? Like if you're negative about, any given situation, then, you're not going to be able to see yourself as that future person. When I was 280 pounds, 290 pounds, the only way that I was going to get down to the weight that I wanted was to truly see myself as that individual that weighed 210 pounds, that was healthy, that was doing all of these different things. If I didn't see that, and if I didn't, keep that in the top of my priority, or if I had a negative thought, then that doesn't continuously allow me to see myself as that person. And what's going to happen? I'm going to stop progressing towards that individual, and then I'm going to be right, because whether I think negative thoughts or positive thoughts, I'm going to make those things right. Those things are going to come to fruition. And so that's why that powerful and that reflective talk needs to be just with a gentle lens versus being hard on ourselves. And self-confidence. Journaling allows for individuals to really be more self-confident. I'm somebody, like I said, I'm very empathetic, and with that I get highs and lows. And when I feel great about myself, sometimes I feel like I can tackle the world, and at other times when I don't feel so great about myself, I kind of want to throw the kitchen sink in there. And so with the journaling and the way that I set up K-Journal, it really allowed me to kind of think about the things that I learned. It allowed me to think about the things that I was happy about, that I celebrated success each and every week. That way, over the course of time, if I was in a bad place, that I could always refer back to the things that I was proud of, or maybe somebody said, or different accomplishments that I had, and I was always able to then maybe move myself out of that space quicker than I had been before. Growth, when you journal and write things down, and they talk about SMART goals, you have to be able to measure and all of these different things. Journaling allows you to see that transpire, and it allows you to capture all of that, kind of over time. So, really with consistency, small changes become these new mindful habits, right? And so that's really where, it's like, okay, I've had a slip, but this is still what I want. So tomorrow I'm going to try to make a different choice. And that's really what it's all about. And memory, when you write things down, we're automatically triggering ourselves, to say, this is important. This is something that I want to remember. This is something that has importance to me. So when you write things down, you have the ability to, have a better mental capacity about what it is that you were talking about. Anybody have any questions or anything so far, or, have any comments or anything? Excellent. So let me go to, and so this is what the accountability worksheet looked like when I first started it. And now the journal that I have is a 90-day, journal, and encompasses 3 months worth of time, and, starts off with a vision page, because, you have to have an understanding of, what is the end goal, what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then slowly, break things down to manageable steps that you can, have these small wins and maintain momentum, because really momentum is critical when you're trying to, achieve these different goals. And certainly with larger goals, the more momentum you have, then when those obstacles come in place and those barriers come in front of you, you've got something to be able to kind of push past. And so, mindfulness is a basic human ability to be fully present and aware of, where we are, what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed, right? Like, so the more that I can stay mindful about a journey, if we're always going to have these things that pop up, and it's just like, okay, well, I can handle that right now. I'm taking care of myself. I have the ability to remain calm and just, kind of handle things because I'm taking care of myself. And so journaling really allows for that mindful behavior. So I set it up for myself as one, understanding each and every single week, what was success going to look like? And I don't know if you guys are any, I give a sports analogy, and I don't know if you guys are like sports or anything, but, I'm a big Patriots fan, and, I tell people that any head coach is going to go into each week and each year with what they consider, a roadmap for success. And that's fantastic, but how many of us do that for ourselves, right? And so this weekly accountability worksheet in this journal allowed me to understand what success looked like for myself, and then how was I going to give that to myself. And so each week there's a new goal because, quite frankly, we have different priorities that come in and out of our lives. And so, each week there might be, something new that we really have to focus on. So what's our main objective that we have for the week? And then what's our personal and professional goals? What do we need to do and what do we want to do, right? We always have to keep that quadrant 2 in the back of our mind. What do we want? What is for our future, and how are we incorporating that into our lives each and every day so that that can become a reality? And I put personal over professional, and that's not by accident, because we are the most important thing, right? Like if we don't take care of us, then we can't take care of everything else. And so if we're not taking care of ourselves, then we can't take care of our professional self as well. And so that's really where, again, personal, professional, what do you have to do? What do you want to do? Write out those goals. And then this grid is really critical for folks to then say, okay, well, how am I going to then fit this into my life, right? Like, where is it going to go? Understanding what your week looks like, understanding where you're going to be able to fit those in. Maybe you have to wake up a half an hour earlier than you currently do because there's just no space for you to take care of yourself. And so that's where you're going to be able to try to pull from that. And that's just, really what that grid allows for is just understanding all of the priorities that are going to come from the day, and where are you going to be able to fit all of these new little habits or activities that are going to allow for that future self. Or maybe you're at there now, but you just need to define things a little bit more. And so that's really what this allows for. Understanding, having that why are you setting these goals? Again, when you understand your why, you're able to push past places that you really never thought that you'd be able to achieve. And what are your big wins for the week? Again, when I'm not necessarily in the best space, or I have these negative thoughts that kind of come creeping in about what I'm doing or where I wanted to go, having this and being able to refer back to it always really just helped me, get that new perspective that I needed to get out of the headspace that I was in. And so really the left side of the journal, the first page is really all about that future self that you're in the middle of creating, right? And the right side, the next page is really all of that reflective self. How did you do last week? You set out these goals, and how did it go? What happened, and is there any room for improvement? Always, each and every week, understanding what the lessons that you learned, each and every week, so that you can, again, kind of evaluate and understand what's happening and where that's going. And I love this last one, because people are always like, this is so redundant. Why do I have to write this week after week, what I'm creating for myself? Because with that repetition, and that's the reminder of, that version of yourself that is 3 to 5 years away, that is an awful difficult place to stay, and an awful difficult place to keep momentum. When you're like, I'm always chasing this future version of myself. But the only way for you to get that second home, or for you to get that thing, is to each and every day be cognizant of what it is that you want for that future self, so that you can maintain all of these activities that you've already outlined and given yourself, that is going to then allow you to be that person that you want to in 3 to 5 years. And so it's that constant back and forth, right? Of like, do I want, 2 scoops of ice cream, in an hour, or do I want 1 scoop right now? And it's trying to find a way of moving from that 1 scoop to that 2 scoops, and always just thinking about that future individual, and what are you giving yourself right now in order to be able to achieve that. And again, self-care, it's synonymous with self-indulgence or being selfish, but really it's taking care of yourself in the healthiest way that you can be, and just being that person that you want to be, and accomplishing everything that you want to. Because the reality is that, you know, we're only limited by what we think about ourselves and what we think that we can achieve. And so the more that we have and leave these self-limiting thoughts, you know, then the more that we understand that, you know, we have that ability to move ourselves in that direction. You guys may remember the Hair Club for Men, right? I'm not just a president, but I'm also a client. Like, I do this because of what it did for myself, both physically and just internally. You know, I will no longer ever be that other version of myself, because I know the path that I took, and I know the individual that I want to be, and it's I believe that everyone is a bright shining star, right? We all have something special and unique within inside of us that's up for us to discover, develop, and then give that back to the world. And, you know, and I say this as we're all unique, but then I also say that there's really nothing unique about me that allowed me to do this that doesn't allow anybody else to do that as well. And so, you know, we all have that capacity to drive our own bus, to be this individual that makes us the happiest and joyfulest that we can possibly be. And it's just a matter of, you know, finding a way to get that done. And really, journaling is an amazing tool to allow that to happen. And so, like I said before, this is just a little bit of details about the course. I do less one-on-one coaching now than I did before, because I'm able to present in, you know, into larger groups and help folks develop the skill sets that will allow all of these things to kind of come to fruition. And so it's really been a fun year kind of transitioning to all of that, but it's been great. And so that's the lunch and learn, and that's you know, again, if there's any questions, I'd love to answer anything that anybody might have.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that it's so true in my own life, like when you were talking about the quadrants and you have your goals, but if you don't set the time aside, it's less likely to happen. So for instance, I always like to have, I enjoy dance, Zumba, and yoga, and I joined you know, I always go to the gym, and then so I find that if I want, it's enough to say, you know, a lot of people say, well, I want to be healthier, but then they don't set the time aside. So I know if I set the time aside, and for Tuesdays and Thursdays, say, is when Zumba class is, then I'm definitely gonna go. And then once I have the schedule and I set that time aside, you find yourself achieving your goals that way when you set the time aside and you actually go. Like for me, some people are internally motivated to do their exercise at home, maybe with YouTube. Me, I did that a little bit during COVID, but I'm not as consistent as if I'm more motivated exercising within a group. So that I know if I go to the gym and those days that they have the Zumba or yoga, and I set that time aside, and I'm able to actually do it.
I love that. No, and that's
long term, you know.
Yeah, and then that's really when, and then you can stay consistent because you like going to a place, you found a great rhythm and a groove, and then all of a sudden it just, you feel different week after week. It just it feels a little bit different, and 100%. That's
I like
excellent.
to have the dance in my life because it's a good way to do cardio, and cardio is a major de-stressor. You know,
for sure, yeah, and that's what fits. And the perfect thing is that, you know, it's just understanding that that's what makes you happiest, right? Like, and so you find these things that you might enjoy, and even if you didn't know that you enjoyed them, you try different things, you find what you like, and then you're just like, okay, I want to do more of that because it's good physically, it's good mentally, it's good all the way around for myself. Yeah, Joe.
Hey, Scott. So I know you used to sell the journal just by itself.
Yep.
Are there instructions like you gave us today that would help us follow it, or
no? But you know what I think that I will what I will do is I will do this weekend. I'll do a YouTube video and a link that I'll then kind of post that allow people to, you know, understand the journal. So I'll create a little something that I can send you that will allow just the instruction, because you know, again, while I was frustrated with a blank journal, a lot of people will open up this journal and it's fairly complex and be like, whoa, I don't know what to do here, and then get intimidated and then not, want to use it. So yeah, for sure.
Well, here's my other question. You do corporate training, and I don't
Yep.
know if those are customized to the industry or if it's just general
No.
classes, because what I'm wondering
Yeah.
is, could you create a program for chamber members? How many would you need to sign up in order to make it worth doing a class?
Oh, sure. And so, we can certainly kind of customize it towards the group for 100%, but certainly the class is would be such a way that one, I think that we could certainly talk about it and find something that would work for the chamber, because again, it's a great process to go through. And so I do this not just in corporate spaces, but then I also do this in like high schools and prep schools and things of that nature. So it's not just limited to the corporate world. So yeah, 100% we could do something. And, I have as little as 2 people in some of my, some of the different classes that we'll do.
So that would be, the course is to fine tune what it takes to do the journaling.
The course is designed to understand, all of the skills that go into journaling and what that looks like. And I've got 2 different courses. One's a 2-hour course, 1 day, 2-hour course, and then I have a course that is 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. And so we can kind of talk about things, but that is to, yes, it allows to understand the different parts of the journal and understand the different skill sets that, kind of move through it, and then apply that to, using the journal as a tool to then, be able to apply all of that. Now, some folks go on and will always use the journal. Other folks, kind of create what works best for them. And so that's it's all about what's going to be best for somebody. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because I'd like to do this, but I think I need a little more instruction and understanding how to do it.
For sure.
Like, I don't even know if I answered your first question correctly.
You did. No, all of that. Yeah, no, I think that, again, we can have a conversation and, we can figure out, something that works, and just figure out a group size if there's any interest. If not, we can kind of just talk offline and figure something out.
Yeah, I think
sure.
there could be. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Angela.
Hey, Angela.
My question is the journal is on the computer?
So I have 2 versions. I have a hard copy that I really encourage most people to use, because I think that the writing things down is super popular. But then I also have a writable PDF version of the journal that allows for folks to be able to kind of work more electronically, which some folks are just more inclined to at this in this era.
Well, years ago, before the computer, I used to use the Franklin Planner.
Yes.
Which was a daily.
Yep.
And you had all your hours in there, and I used it faithfully. And then at the end of the year, when you took the calendar out of the binder, I'd say to myself, oh my goodness, this is my whole life in 1990 or whatever it was, and I'd almost feel guilty. Where am I going to put it? Then come find out you had all these binders you could put them in and say but since then, so of course, then everything's gone the way of the computer. And so that went out of my life, and I haven't used it for a long time, and I have low vision. So anything on paper is not my friend. The computer is my friend now. So I have to do it on the computer. And
I have the electronic copy. It's an electronic, like I said, it's a writable PDF version of the journal.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Of course. Well, excellent.
I'm overwhelmed. I try to link it to or equate it to something that I'm more familiar with, and I keep going back, and you can correct me if I'm totally
Of
off
course, yeah,
base.
yeah.
But you know, throughout my career in business, you know, time management and setting priorities, and you know, making sure that you address the, you know, A priorities before you address the D priorities, and then
Mhm.
you know, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around. Primary difference with journaling is that you write things down. Am I close?
Yeah, it really, you know, the journal and I again I think about it as a tool, right? Like this allows me to take all of the stuff that I have in my head and just put it in front of me. Before I did this, I was an executive recruiter, and you know, let's just say I was working on 14 different, you know, opportunities. You know, I need to know who's in each single, you know, position, what stage there are. So I need all of these things in front of me. And the more that I keep in front of me, then the easier it is for me to navigate and handle all of those different things and continue along. And so the journal allows for me to keep everything in front of me. It also allows that really allowed me to just understand that how critical it really is for us to understand ourselves, understand what we want, what makes us that best individual. Like, right, who am I? You know, who do I want to be as a spouse, as a stepfather, as a brother, as an uncle, as all of these individuals? You define that and you understand it. And then it's so much easier to then understand when you're not in that space and you're like, okay, well, I'm not doing this. What can I do now? And allow you to always kind of go back to this, you know, this our own guiding light. And journaling allowed me and this tool allowed me to just be my own guiding light, to always think about the healthiest me and make sure that I'm that healthiest version of myself, so that again, so that I can give more. I'm a very giving individual. I love to say yes and help other people. But I'm no good to them if I'm no good. And so that's really where I became an advocate for individuals taking care of themselves, again, so that I can best facilitate and take care of other people. And that's the, you know, that's at its truest form. And the journal is that tool that allows me to stay on track, to keep things in front of me, to define what that looks like, and then make sure that, you know, I'm in that space.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I really
Yes.
appreciated
Thank you,
everyone's
Scott.
time.
Thank you, Scott. It was great.
Yeah, for sure. It was wonderful.
Colleen's
and-
waving.
Yeah, I see here. Thanks, Kelly. It was really great. I really appreciate you know, everyone's time. I'm always grateful when I'm able to do this, and so thank you guys.
And you will reach many more. It will be up on the chamber website.
Oh, great. Excellent.